What are 7 pieces of advice that every INFJ needs? Stick around to find out. There's a well-known proverb that reads, "Timely advice is lovely, like golden apples in a silver basket." And it's really true. The right words spoken at the right time can bring confidence, clarity, and encouragement, and you can't put a price tag on them. They're invaluable. So what I'd like to share with you today are 7 pieces of advice that I think will encourage you and help you along the way. I know they would me. And at the end of this video, I'd love to hear what you would tell another INFJ, or if you disagree with anything that I've shared with you. So, piece of advice number 1 is to be yourself. It's easy to try to act like other people around you, especially as an INFJ, when a lot of times you may feel like you don't fit in or like you're weird. Also, we care a lot about what other people think, or at least we're more aware of what they think, and our happiness to some extent is wrapped up in other people being happy. But it's really important to stay true to yourself. So you can learn a lot about this from other people. My wife, for instance, is an ISTJ, and I've learned a ton about how to be yourself from her because she's unapologetically honest, and I actually respect and appreciate her for that very fact. So it's really important to practice sharing what you think, even if you know other people may disagree with it. And you could do it in a respectful way. If someone can't handle that, maybe that's a maturity issue for that person. And of course, you need to consider when and how you do that. But by and large, being yourself is so important. And you can also be encouraged and take comfort in the fact that there are a lot of other people, INFJs, like you out there, probably more than you think. The second piece of advice that's been a big boost to me, that's given me a lot of life, that I think will do the same for you, is to continue to experiment. As an INFJ, you get energized, at least a lot of us get energized from learning something new that interests us. And it tends to be cyclical. Like you stick with something for a couple of years, maybe 3 years. I'm not saying you get rid of it altogether, but you tend to focus on something intensely for a year to 3 years until you move on to something else. And this process, or this tendency, ends up making you an expert on a variety of things. And it can be bad in that maybe you don't stick with something for an extended period of time, but it's also good because it makes you a jack of all trades to some extent. And that makes you knowledgeable and able to help other people in a lot of arenas of life. So I'd encourage you to continue to experiment. It's how you're going to learn about yourself. It's how you're going to get energized. And it's ultimately how you can help a lot of people too. So don't feel bad about the fact that you might bounce from interest to interest if you do that. If you don't do that, then it's not a problem. But continue to try new things, learn new things. It's going to fill out that introverted intuition part of you, and it's going to energize you. So keep it up and keep learning about yourself and about the world around you. Piece of advice number 3, take action. INFJs tend to spend a heap of time collecting information and becoming a well-rounded expert on something before they get to the point of taking action or making a decision. And that can be a good thing. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but there are some areas in life where that's not the best. I can give you a quick story. I would have never married my wife, going back to that example again of being married, if I hadn't had my dad pushing me to call her. I needed someone to force me out and get me to do something. And that ended up being helpful. I'm so glad that he did that. Another example that doesn't have to do with marriage is that you might want to start sharing your creative work, either through a website, performances, or a business of some kind. And we can tend to keep researching, but instead, the best way for us to grow is get it out there and try it. And I'd encourage you to do something called ooching. Chip and Dan Heath, the authors of Switch and several other books, great books, by the way, say that ooching is a way to get started. And ooching just means taking micro experiments. You don't have to commit and go all in, but rather try a little bit of this or a little bit of that, especially when it comes to taking action, and learn from it. But try in certain arenas of life to get out there faster, because you're going to learn a lot more from that than just collecting information. Okay, this one might seem a little bit like a weird one, but don't let the fact that you're an INFJ completely define you and box you in. It's really important that you identify yourself right. You're so much more than just an INFJ. You're probably a sibling, you're definitely a son or a daughter, and you are a friend, you're a worker, you have all kinds of relationships and roles other than that are so important in life. So don't let it pin you down. It's easy to get sucked into your preferences and your styles based on your personality, and then to let that be self-fulfilling prophecy. I can give you a quick example. There was a time a few years back when I was working on, a blog post that I was going to post, and my wife and kids kept coming in the room. I think it was Saturday morning. And I got really frustrated because it's hard for me to concentrate. You can probably relate when people barge in and interrupt. So I got irritated and said something like, "Don't you know I'm an introvert? I can't focus if you keep bursting in here." When in reality, I was forgetting what my primary roles were. I'm ultimately a husband and a dad, and those roles are more important. So what I needed to do was remember that and then find a better time to work on the projects. So in that case, I should have remembered the other aspects of who I am and not gotten so sucked into my identity as an introvert or as an INFJ. And I'd also encourage you to not let your preferences or personality preferences hold you back in the area of relationships. Sometimes your friends are going to want to go out and you probably should join them even though you don't feel like it. I'm not saying to do that all the time. There are times where you probably just need to stay home and recharge, or maybe there's something at work that you need to do that doesn't fit your style or preference. It's probably good to go and do that. If possible, try to stick to what matches you best more often, but it's important to be malleable and to get out of the mold. And also remember that we use every type of personality style out there at some point in our lives. It's just that we prefer others. And it's good to jump outside of the box from time to time and not identify yourself solely based on your INFJ personality traits. Number 5. This one might seem like a contradiction of what I just said, but I'm going to say it anyway. Work smarter. As an INFJ, even if you don't know, your dominant function, the driving part of your personality, is introverted intuition, which enables you to be creative, to synthesize, to work on a project, to organize it in a logical way, and to do a whole lot of other awesome things. But it works best in an introverted fashion. That means when it's not interrupted and it can focus for long periods of time. Not only that, when you're working uninterrupted, focused on a project, that's probably your best opportunity to enter your flow state, where you lose track of time and you're just totally into it. I don't know if you've had that experience before, where you're working on something and you're just enjoying it so much and so focused on doing it well that when you finally look up, you realize hours have gone by and maybe you've forgotten to eat or do something else that you would normally do, like use the bathroom. So that's the kind of work that you want to get into, and you should try, if at all possible, to do that in your job. And if you can't do it at work, see if you can fit it in a couple times a week, other places or at home. Keeping in mind that there are certain seasons of life, like if you're a mom with young kids, it might be hard to do that until the kids go to bed. But do your best to give yourself time to work, focus and uninterrupted on some kind of project or creative venture or research, because it's really going to energize you as an INFJ. Number 6 is a really important one, but it's also difficult for a lot of us, and that is practice being direct. If you're not already good at it, and a lot of it depends on the kind of family and environment you've spent time in growing up or even at work, it's important to exercise and practice this ability. You need to be assertive at times, and that's important because you need to protect the things you care about and fight against the things that are bad. So if you have strong values and you tend to go along with other people to make them happy, you might end up harboring a lot of bitterness and resentment, which can be frustrating. What would be wiser would be to learn from other people who are more forthcoming. Again, I mentioned my wife earlier. I mention her a lot because I learn a lot, like you might if you're married, from my spouse. And she's really good at being direct. That helps me a lot. So as a result, I've been able to practice being more honest and candid with what I really think. And that's helped in my own relationships with my family. My family was really sensitive growing up, which actually helped me a lot. But sometimes when I say things to them, they're taken aback. But in the end, here's the bottom line. When we're completely honest and forthcoming for the good of others, not to tear them down or to hurt anybody, but just to be real, it allows the relationship to grow deeper, because then we can work on each other. If you don't have two people being completely honest and pushing against each other, then we're not going to grow and we're not going to have a real honest relationship. My wife likes to make fun of me. One year we decided we weren't going to have the kids participate in Halloween. I mean, we still decided that, but the first time we decided that, we had some neighbors who were walking down the street with whom we normally talk. They're really friendly guys. And they called out, because Halloween was the next night, "Hey, what are you going to be for Halloween?" And me wanting to make everybody happy, I just said, "Whatever gets candy." And my wife didn't say anything at the moment, but we had already decided, well, actually she did say something. She said, "We're not participating in Halloween." But then when we got inside, she said something to me. She said, "Whatever gets candy." Because obviously I wasn't being candid. I was just trying to say whatever made other people happy. So now, whenever I say something that's not completely direct, or just whenever she wants to jab me, we laugh. She says, whatever gets candy. And that's kind of our inside joke. But the important thing is, if you want a real relationship where the person really respects you for who you are and you don't allow any bitterness to come and grow between you, and you are really being yourself, it's important to practice being direct. And that can be difficult as an INFJ, but it's a super valuable skill to have. And piece of advice number 7, the last one, is appreciate the differences. You know, I used to spend a ton of time frustrated because other people didn't understand what made me tick, why I do what I do, and how I work as an INFJ. And that irritated me to no end until I realized that INFJs, out of all the 16 personality types, are at the top, or at least among the top personality types, in understanding why other personality types do what they do and what makes each one of them unique. So we really appreciate and understand others, and we expect the same from others. But then I started to think about it a little bit. There are other personality types that have phenomenal strengths. Like, for instance, they might have an eye for precision, or a drive to get things done, or an ability to enjoy the moment, exceptional social grace, and so on. Things that we won't do nearly as well as they do. I mean, we probably do some of those well, but not to the extent that they do them. And those people are frustrated when we don't exercise the same abilities to the extent that they do. So in the same way we're frustrated when they don't understand us, they're frustrated maybe when we're not as precise or exacting with our work. And we are in some ways, okay, because we can be perfectionistic. But I mean, in other realms of life, like maybe in the concrete world with specific details, we're not that way. So they can be irritated with us. So here was the takeaway for me. I learned that I need to be more patient and gracious toward others because I'm irritating them just as much as they're irritating me that they don't understand me. And on the flip side, looking at it positively, it helped me to appreciate the wonderful gifts that they bring to the world, and also how I could contribute to that world by helping others get along and understand one another and see where each one is coming from. We tend to be really good at conflict resolution because we can see why other people are doing things and then help them bridge the gap and understand. Because, you know, there are a lot of personality types out there that honestly think everyone's like them because they have another gift in another area. So it's important that we come in and help them understand. If you'd like to learn even more about yourself as an INFJ, I'd love to give you a free copy of my book, The INFJ Personality Guide. In the book, you'll learn about the mindsets that drive you and cause you to do what you do. And you'll hopefully come away understanding that you're not broken or messed up, but you have some really awesome, special, unique gifts that the world needs. And the book, I hope, will help you use those gifts to be a blessing to others and to help serve others. So you can grab a free copy of the book by checking out the link in the description below, or you can just go to infjbook.com. Actually, you need to go to www.infjbook.com if you're on a computer. But you can grab a free copy there, and I hope it is an encouragement to you. So there you have it. 7 pieces of advice that I would want somebody to tell me, and I hope are an encouragement to you. Again, I'd love to hear what you think. What pieces of advice would you give another INFJ? What's been helpful to you? And do you disagree with anything that I've shared? Thanks for joining me today. Looking forward to seeing you next time.